Mercedes found a loophole in the 2026 regulations that let them sustain 350 kilowatts of MGU-K output right up to the moment the lap time registers. And Ferrari's answer for Spa involves a rear wing that folds in on itself like origami. This is the technical arms race that could decide the 2026 championship. Silverstone and Spa, two circuits built for power, long, sweeping, high-speed sections where an engine deficit doesn't just hurt, it compounds. Lewis Hamilton said it himself before the British Grand Prix weekend. The gap to Mercedes could feel twice as big at these venues. Ferrari and Hamilton knew what was coming. What they didn't fully anticipate was that Mercedes would arrive at Silverstone not just with a significant upgrade package, while rivals brought comparatively minor updates, but with a qualifying trick hidden inside the 2026 regulations that nobody else had spotted. Here's what the 2026 regulations actually say. At high speed, drivers must ramp down electric power output gradually and roughly 50 kilowatts per second. The intent is safety and predictability. The MGU-K in 2026 can deliver up to 350 kilowatts. That ramp down rule means you're bleeding power before the lap time is registered. Except there's an exception. If the driver lifts off the throttle, the ramp down rule doesn't apply in the same way. Mercedes worked out that by lifting just 5 to 6 meters before the finish line, a tiny, almost invisible moment of throttle release, their drivers could trigger that exception. The result, the full 350 kilowatts of MGU-K deployment sustained right to the instant the timing beam records the lap, not a fraction less. GPblog's telemetry analysis confirmed it, legal, completely within the regulations, and the margin it creates at the end of a qualifying lap where every hundredth is a war is not trivial. Here's the twist. Red Bull can do it too. The technique isn't locked to Mercedes hardware. Any team that identifies the same exception and trains their driver to execute that precise throttle lift can access the same benefit. The question is, who figures it out fast enough? And who has the MGU-K performance to make it matter? Now, Ferrari arrived at Silverstone braced for damage limitation, Hamilton on pole for sprint qualifying, Charles Leclerc on the front row. That was not the catastrophe the pre-weekend narrative had predicted. Ferrari proved surprisingly competitive in qualifying trim, but the underlying reality didn't change. Mercedes still led on race pace, where the sustained power advantage over longer stints tells a truer story than a single hot lap, and the power unit deficit is real. Ferrari's current configuration carries a rear differential layout tied to their FTM system, flick tail mode, a blown exhaust design that generates rear downforce by directing exhaust gases across the diffuser. Clever aerodynamics, but that layout costs approximately 7 horsepower of internal combustion engine output, 7 horsepower. You are simply not getting back on a power-sensitive circuit. At Silverstone, Ferrari lived with that compromise. At Spa, they are not. For Spa-Francorchamps, Ferrari is tearing out the FTM system entirely. Gone. The rear differential layout that cost them 7 ICE horsepower removed. That alone recovers meaningful power on the Kemmel Straight, one of the fastest stretches of asphalt in Formula One. But removing FTM means losing the rear downforce it generated. You can't just strip a system and leave a hole in the aerodynamic balance, so Ferrari built a replacement. They're calling it the Macarena rear wing. The name is not random. This wing features a 270-degree rotation mechanism. The element physically folds in on itself on the straights, dramatically slashing drag in a way a conventional DRS flap cannot replicate. On the Kemmel Straight, where top speed is everything, the Macarena wing offsets the downforce lost from removing FTM while simultaneously reducing drag far more aggressively than the previous configuration allowed. Ferrari's internal simulations project the combined effect, FTM removal plus the Macarena wing, adds approximately 11 kilometers per hour of top speed on the Kemmel Straight. 11 kilometers per hour on a straight where the difference between being overtaken and doing the overtaking is measured in tenths of a second. That is a transformation. Toto Wolff has already issued his warning. After Charles Leclerc's race win this season, Wolff acknowledged Ferrari will challenge Mercedes for the rest of the year. He knows what's coming to Spa. Mercedes found a loophole in the rulebook and extracted free performance from thin air. Ferrari responded by redesigning their rear end and engineering a wing that folds itself flat at 300 kilometers per hour. This is Formula One in 2026, and it is extraordinary. If Ferrari simulations hold at Spa, this championship just got a great deal more interesting.